Hey there, welcome to Oh Happy Plants. Today's video, Acclimation, maybe it's you. We are going to get into this massive issue that's floating all around the houseplant groups, acclimation. All right, acclimation, what is it? Presented as kind of common knowledge on plant groups is this idea that plants don't like to be moved. Now, people who have had a few houseplants for a while get the idea that all plants will fuss a bit when they come home and attribute it to the change in location. So here are a few scenarios. Maybe your plant got 5 yellow leaves in the first 3 weeks when it was in your house. A lot of folks will tell you it's because you brought it home from the store and your car ride was tough on it. Or your little ficus dropped like half of its leaves when you put it in a different room in your house. Again, a lot of people think that ficus trees don't like to be moved and they're super touchy about that. Now, I'm here to tell you that this is not what's going on. Kind of. Let's dig in. Acclimation isn't actually an issue your plant is having with movement. It's an issue you are having in responding to the changed environment and adjusting your care to suit. When I learned this, I was like, oh crap, what have I been doing all of these years? I felt really guilty. But then I realized that this is a fabulous thing because if something is entirely my fault, I can learn to fix it. So hold on, you might be asking how this little freak out is actually on us, the plant parents. What you see is a perfect plant in the store, and then after you bring it home and start caring for it, it throws a temper tantrum. The issue here is that you're going about your care like you would with any of your plants in your home. You might be a little more attuned and give it some species-specific care, but what most folks don't realize is that brand new, fresh from the growing fields plants act entirely different than plants that have been in our home environments for a while, and our normal care just doesn't cut it. So here's a great example. When I bring a new Silver Bay Aglaonema into a building, I know that it's going to drink about half again as much water as an older specimen would drink in the same location. Like if it was right next to an older plant, it would drink half again as much. And I'm going to throw out some numbers here. Don't follow this. This isn't watering advice. This is just an example. For a 10-inch pot in a really bright location, I might give an older plant about 1.5 quarts of water every 2 weeks, but for a brand new one, I'll need to water it heavy, giving it up to 3 quarts, sometimes even a little more. So sometimes they'll drink double what the older plant will drink. Now, again, that's not watering advice. This is always dependent on your plant, your location, your care, how frequently you're watering, everything like that. So this is just what I have noticed in certain locations in my work. Now, back to it. So this plant on the left has been in this space for about 2 years. It's drinking quite a bit less than it used to, despite being the same size it was when I put it in. Now, when I put it in, I could have treated it exactly the same as the other aglos in this space, but if I had done that, it would have thrown a massive fit. So what's the reason for that? Well, think about their first home. When these plants were propagated, they lived somewhere like the photo to the right, either in a greenhouse with super high humidity, light, and heat, or out in a growing field under a shade cloth. The main suppliers of plants in the US are California, Florida, and Hawaii, so your new baby is used to some very different weather. They're also used to much different care. Most of these places have a sprinkler system and water much more frequently than we would in our homes because so much of the water will evaporate into the air, and also they don't use saucers underneath, so the water just drains straight to the ground. So your baby plant just came from a place with 90-degree heat, maybe 100% relative humidity, intense light, because even under a shade cloth, the light is 10 times as bright as most of the places in your home, and a very different watering pattern. This means that your plant's biological processes are used to that, and plants aren't adapted to movement because it's not like they walk. So when we move them, it takes a while for their biological processes to change to suit the new location. Like, humans can go out and go to a really cold climate and get there in a couple of days, and our bodies are going to change what they are doing to put more energy into heating us up. And also, we'll go out there and find an animal skin to wear or something like that. We'll go find a fur coat and build a little shelter out of tree trunks or something like that. So we have the skills and the ability to adapt to changing climates really quickly, and plants take a while because they're simply not used to walking around. And so that's what we're talking about when we use the word acclimation. It's just the time it takes for them to slow their biological processes from how they are in a nursery or greenhouse situation to how they are in our home. So how do we understand how to adjust our care? Well, we look at what they're used to and we compare it to our home. So let's take a look at the nursery. In this environment, respiration is kicked up because of the humidity and intense light. Respiration is when plants open their pores to let oxygen out and take in carbon dioxide because they use the carbon from the air to make new cells. They're growing more due to the intense light, and so they need to breathe a lot more because they need to take in the CO2. They're also usually in a higher humidity environment, so they open their pores more easily because they're not losing moisture when they do it. Next, look at your home. The light will definitely be lower than the nursery. Windows alone will cut the light coming in by half, so you can be sure that the plant is going to have to adapt to lower light. The photo on the left will be closer to what the plant was used to in the nursery, but the photo on the right has a dark wall, which will absorb some of the light in the room. To help your plant out, one of my favorite tricks is that you can just put a mirror behind your plant. It'll open up your room because it seems like there's maybe a window into another room, creating more space. It'll also visually double the amount of foliage that you see, so it looks like you have 2 plants instead of 1. And then any light that hits that mirror is reflected back towards the plant, so it has twice the chance of getting light instead of just the light hits the plant and then is absorbed by the wall. And another trick, obviously, is to just invest in a good grow light. I will eventually have quite a few links up on the Oh Happy Plants main site for grow lights and other things, other solutions. So with either of these locations, the plant will take some time to slow its growth and respiration, so it'll need a bit of extra attention from you as it acclimates. All right, let's get back to the main premise. This idea that plants don't like to be moved isn't what's going on here. Most plants don't mind as long as the person moving them pays attention to what they need. This means that we need to figure out what kind of light and heat the plant wants when we choose a location in our house. It also means adapting our care very intentionally, starting from the first day we bring the plant home and continuing for at least 6 months until the plant has thoroughly settled in. This doesn't have to be complicated. Now, our goal here at Oh Happy Plants is to eventually create species-specific videos to break down the care they each need, like every single type of plant, because they're all different. But initially, we're going to get everybody up to speed on the basics before we really go into depth. So right now, let's explain what this transition looks like for most plants. You're going to want to address several aspects of the transition. Changes in light, temperature, and humidity, water frequency and amount, and fertilization are all factors here. So let's get into it all willy-nilly. Typically, nurseries will regularly fertilize because they're trying to grow strong plants with showy foliage. So it's a good idea to keep that up. Your new plant was used to a regular buffet, and so it'll be way hungrier, so to speak, if it suddenly isn't getting any fertilizer. And so definitely keep up on the fertilizer. And we will have a fertilizer video out soon. Right now we're testing several different products on a couple hundred plants, and we're going to get back to you on which ones work the best for us. All right, next, temperature and humidity. So temperature is a real consideration here. Higher temp means more water lost when the plant breathes, and also typically encourages faster growth, to a point. As long as the plant isn't cooking and dying, a higher temperature, to the point that that plant can tolerate, will encourage faster growth. Now, linked to that is humidity. If the plant is in a humid climate like Hawaii's growing fields or in a greenhouse, the pores are going to be open and it will be used to breathing a lot. Respiration, which I just call breathing because it's easier, is the gas exchange process that plants do to expel oxygen and take in carbon dioxide. They use the carbon to build their little planty cells, and then they push the leftover oxygen back out. When they're growing really quickly due to the light and fertilizer provided at a nursery, they're going to breathe a lot more. So when you bring your plant home, it's been programmed to grow quickly, and it's going to take a while to slow this growth. Now, the humidity in the growing environment also affects the plant's pores. If you put a towel over your head and put it over a bowl of boiling water and it unclogs your sinuses, or maybe you steam your pores or whatever, it's the same principle. The heat gets things expanding, the moisture keeps them flexible, as near as I can tell. And so basically, increased humidity is going to have a plant more used to keeping its pores open a lot. Nurseries will also have a different watering plan than you have at home, and usually these plants are kept without saucers, so any excess water can freely drain away. Because they're actively growing in a hot environment, they're going to be drinking a lot more too. Now, due to this active growth and the fact that plants just aren't built to move long distances or suffer immediate intense seasonal change, like being moved from an 80-degree humid bright greenhouse to the inside of your house in less than 4 days, which is exactly what we do to them, they take a while to adjust. If they had legs like us, their little systems would be designed to handle this sort of change. I'm not sure that plants ever expected to have to adapt to human parents. It's pretty weird of us to do this, but here we are, so let's do our best. So in the nursery, they get regular water, maybe even daily, and they never sit in a puddle. When you first bring them home, they're going to seriously slurp up a lot of water. But again, they don't want to sit in a puddle, so you're going to find yourself watering more frequently than you normally would, and a little bit heavier too. Definitely refer to our tutorial, How to Water Like a Boss, to find out more about adapting your watering to your plant's needs. You'll use the same method in that video. You'll just notice that your plant is using a whole lot more water than it will after acclimation. Continue to use this method because for the first 6 or more months, your plant will be settling and adapting to the new environment, and its water needs are going to consistently change throughout that adaptation. Okay, last and possibly most important is the change in light. The light in a nursery, often under a shade cloth, but still very, very bright, is meant to mimic what the plant would receive in nature because that's the best way to get the plant to grow big and bushy. Most of our houseplants are from the tropics, so they get intense bright light. A lot of them grow on the jungle floor, so filtered sun is their jam, but some are adapted to the canopy, like trees and their epiphyte friends. So the nurseries are going for even bright light when they grow plants because they want all of the plants in any given area to mature at about the same pace. The difference between the light at the nursery and in your home is massive. If you took a light meter to both spaces, you'd be astounded at the difference. So light is measured in foot candles here in the US, and I promise I am going to figure out exactly what that means. I believe it's something to do with how much light is present 1 foot away from a candle, 2 feet away from a candle, etc. But I might be making that up. I'm not sure, but I'll figure it out. Anyway, so that's how light's measured in the US in foot candles, and indoor lighting is usually between 10 and 50 foot candles. A cloudy day outside provides about 100 foot candles of light. A cloudy day. So that's still twice as much light as inside your home on the, like with all of your lights on, brightest light you can have in your house. A cloudy day outside is twice as much light. And a sunny day is about 1,000 foot candles. So these plants are used to maybe 500 foot candles-ish, depending on the shade cloth that covers them in a nursery. And your home is about 1/10 of that on a good day. So first, don't freak out. I'm telling you this to put a point on the fact that plants have some serious acclimation to do when they come home with you. You can use this information to make good choices about the plant location, especially when they first come home. At work, if I need to replace a plant in a dark corner of some office, what I'll do is I'll order a new plant from the grower, and then I will put that into a medium light location and take the good plant that was there in that medium light location and put it in the dark location. So I do kind of a little musical chairs with the plants, just so that plant doesn't go straight from the grower all the way into the dark, because you don't want to put a plant in a dark corner and freak it out, because that will be bad. And so this is what we're talking about with acclimation. Just kind of step the light down a little bit, just a little at a time. So with that same idea, when you bring a new plant home, you can ease the transition by giving it a bright spot for the first few months or so. And then if you have a location that you want to keep it, like if you want to put it in your bathroom and maybe there's not as much light there, just gradually move it into dimmer and dimmer locations until you put it in your bathroom, and it should give it time to adapt to that environment. Okay, recap time. Now, nurseries are going for maximum growth in minimum time. You can assume several things. They fertilize regularly. The plants get super bright natural light that's about 10 times what you can give them. The heat and humidity are much higher than in your home, which causes increased respiration, and the plants have water freely available at all times. To adjust, just do 4 things. Fertilize lightly with each watering, and we'll have a video out about that soon. Put your brand new plant in the brightest spot in your home, just making sure that it won't get direct afternoon sun because that could sunburn it pretty easily. So let it adjust to that bright spot for a couple of months and then gradually move it to dimmer locations until you have it where you want it. Remember also that your plant is breathing more and will take several months to adjust, so it's going to use more water during this time because respiration allows water to evaporate through the leaves. And last of all, your plant is used to water being freely available, and so make sure to check your plant about twice as often as you normally would with that size of pot and adjust your watering often until it settles in. That's it. Remember that even if your plants give you a few yellow leaves, it's no need to be alarmed. Usually this is just your plant telling you that it wants something else. It's the only way plants communicate. And so be sure to pay close attention to your new baby and just adjust your care really often. Usually you can catch them before they give you yellow leaves if you just pay a little more attention. And so plants don't mind being moved. That's the main gist of this whole thing, just as long as we listen to them and adapt. Thanks again for joining Oh Happy Plants for this tutorial, and to our members, thank you so much. Not only are you improving green spaces all over the world, you're also banding together to reforest the world. Each month of your membership, one tree is planted in your name. Together we are painting the world green. Happy planting.